Hello and welcome to Mondays with Mira. I'm Dr. Mira Reisberg, children's book fanatic, teacher and creative and all sorts of goodies. So I'm going to be sharing my love for Lane Smith and his work, and I'm going to be talking about this terrific book, John, Paul, Ben and George. I think I got it right. No, John, Paul, George and Ben. And it starts off with an insider joke or pun about the Beatles that children won't get, but parents will. And it provides, of course, an opening about who the Beatles were for parents that like to talk about such things. And I have to say, this has to be one of the most creative approaches to nonfiction I've ever seen, with these brief biographical snapshots of early American history, historical figures. John Hancock, Paul Revere, George Washington, Ben Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. Tom is thrown in for good luck. This book is so clever, with so much laugh out loud content, while educating about early American history. You know, you could write a dissertation and be a great dissertation about this book that would talk about postmodernism, that would talk about historical and contemporary art, that would talk about postmodern writing, that could talk about all sorts of goodies, the use of texture, the ways he mixes both an historical and a very contemporary look. And what he's done is got these brief bios of these historical figures as kids, which is always very inspiring for children to see. His wife, the great Molly Leach, who designed the book, she's using all these different, historical looking fonts that also add to the look of the book. And here he's working with texture and space. And so even though there's a lot going on in the illustration, there's also this great clear space that allows your eyes the opportunity to rest. See how it's facing right, guiding the reader. And what he's done is he's painted these little vignettes here, these little introductory images in oil paints, which is what gives it this creamy, buttery look. And you can do a similar thing these days with acrylic paints by working in layers with glazes. And then these here are line ink, pen and ink drawings. And see how he's got this woodblock look here? And then he's brought in all these different textures by scanning in, sort of old cardboard and pulpy paper and different textures and old maps and things that he finds here. He's a brilliant collage artist. And so you see how this is a very disintegrated line. It's not a solid black line. And that's what gives it character. And the same with his drawings. It's not about perfection, although it is, to me, it's perfect. But it's about character. It's not about having the line that is just, uniform throughout, and he's got great thicks and thins. And what these do is they show the human hand. They show the character. Here what he's done is he's either added crackle paint or he's got a Photoshop crackle layer because he painted and created the line art, and I think it's watercolor. It's really, he's just this really generous guy. In the back, it actually talks about what the materials are. Let's read this out. Pen and ink, the textures were created by a variety of techniques, among them oil paint on canvas and sampled surfaces from handmade parchment paper and weathered pulp boards. They're very cool. Here's that crackle effect again. And you can see it really just gives it this wonderful, wonderful look. He also uses framing in very creative ways. So here with each of the biographical portraits. He's got a frame around it. This has a frame around it. This affects a kind of frame here. There's a frame around the board, the blackboard. It's very funny, this book. It's hilarious. And so we've got little, character details like these that crack us up and that really add to the depth of the book. So see the old wood blocky look here, which is a look that I really like. And it's very easy to do just by, creating, what's the word for it? Not congruent, but, lines that are going in the same direction and the lines are broken. They're not completely straight. And see the thicks and thins here? And these all just create this wonderful richness. The other thing that I want to point out before ending this is the muted palette that he uses. So we've got a variety of browns and Venetian red here, and then here these are more browns with the black line. And notice he doesn't outline everything in black, which I think is a very sophisticated thing to do. He just uses black for texture and also for outlining his characters. Here, this is a largely blue palette, and this looks like a Prussian blue to me. Or it might be an ultramarine blue that's muted down with some brown or some black. But it's very cool. And look at the very creative use of type. Here are our characters that are almost like, our supporting characters that are almost like a Greek chorus. Here he's got a little homage to Van Gogh, which is very cool. Very subtle. Movement, which is always nice. And so we've got this great diagonal, very dramatic. And I love the way he seems to save the drama. And instead of having it in his life, he has it in his work because he's just this beautiful, gentle man. I showed you this one before. Very muted palette. And you can mute your palette by either using Complementary Color, which is the color on the opposite side of the color wheel, or by using something like a bit of burnt umber or even a little bit of black can do it too. But you got to be careful with black because black can really deaden a color. Then here's George chopping down the cherry tree. Lots of fun. So anyway, and then the last thing that I want to share, look at this. The factual information, well, there's factual information throughout, but here it's like, the real story about them as adults. Fortunately, Paul Revere was a noisy man. After his midnight ride, every Minuteman, woman, and child knew who was coming and what they'd be wearing. It was the start of the Revolutionary War. And the Americans needed to formally state their separation from the king. Who better than Thomas Jefferson, an independent man, to write the Declaration of Independence? So what he did is he isolated the qualities of each of the things, the historic things that these figures did, and then wrote little stories about those qualities in those people as children. And then here he's got ye old epilogue. George didn't live in the White House like all the other presidents. He was asked to live in New York City, where there aren't so many trees. Very funny. Then he's got a true and false quiz at the end. Before we've got this, page 32. This might be 40 pages. Or 32, I'm not sure, I didn't count. And then here's the last thing. I want you to check out this, this navy blue here with the... I think that's the burnt sienna around here, and how that adds to the historical look. And then here, this is almost like a comic, which kids love. It's very funny. So I'm really glad I got a chance to share this with you because I love this book. and I hope you buy it and help support the wonderful Lane Smith. And then the last thing that I want to point out, well, there's so many things I want to point out, but I'm trying to keep this short, is the gold foil around these that really make it pop. But see how the space is divided? And that too gives it kind of a broadside look. Thanks for watching. Bye.